Rain was falling in long, silver streaks over Seoul, soaking the cracked pavement as if heaven itself wanted to wash away the city's sins. Tolani Adebayo ran through the narrow alleyways, her slippers slapping puddles, heart pounding like drums at a revival service. Behind her came the voice she never wanted to hear again. Tolani, you think you can run from me? Kunal, her ex, her nightmare. His rage echoed off wet walls. He'd found her again, even in Korea. She turned a corner, slipped, scraped her knee. Her phone buzzed with his messages. Come back home, or you'll regret it. She wiped rain from her eyes and kept running until a Red Cross sign glowed through the storm. Grace Clinic, next to the church where she sometimes volunteered. Safety, sanctuary. Inside, chaos ruled. Nurses shouting in Korean. A stretcher rolled past. Blood, shattered glass, and a man unconscious. Someone whispered, "The victim's asking for his girlfriend." Tolani froze. Her pulse roared in her ears. A nurse looked around helplessly. Outside the glass doors, Kunal's shadow moved closer. Her hand rose before her brain could argue. "I'm his girlfriend," she said. "Welcome to Munlyt Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like, subscribe. Please leave us a comment as we really love your feedback and join our circle. Every story begins with you." The words hung like lightning between truth and survival. The nurse's shoulders sagged with relief. Good. He needs someone familiar. They led her to the patient's bedside. Under the harsh light lay Lee Jun-ha, young, breathtaking, a mix of danger and fragility. His face was pale, lips trembling. He looked like every secret soul hid beneath its neon. His eyes fluttered open. They met hers. He exhaled softly. "Yobo," he whispered. "Darling." Tolani blinked. "Ye what?" But the nurse smiled. "See. He remembers you. Stay close." Behind her, thunder growled. Outside, Kunal's figure passed the glass once, then vanished down the street. Tolani's knees nearly gave out. She pressed a trembling palm to Junha's chest, his heartbeat steady, strong. She whispered a prayer under her breath, part gratitude, part guilt. "Lord, if this lie keeps me alive, forgive me later." As the doctors worked, she sat by Junha's side, pretending to comfort him, pretending to belong. Yet the way his hand twitched toward hers made something real stir in her chest. She looked down at him, the stranger who'd unknowingly saved her, and said softly, "You don't know me, but thank you for being my miracle tonight." The heart monitor beeped steadily in reply. Outside, the storm finally began to fade. The next morning broke soft and pale over Seoul. Inside the clinic, the smell of antiseptic mixed with the gentle rhythm of rain easing on the window panes. Tolani sat on the edge of the bed, wringing her hands and whispering a psalm under her breath. The man she'd accidentally claimed as her boyfriend stirred. His lashes flickered, then dark, steady eyes fixed on her face with sharp confusion. "Where am I?" he murmured. "You're safe," she said quickly. "You had an accident, but you'll be fine." He frowned. "Safe with who?" Tolani forced a small smile. "With me. Your girlfriend." He studied her as though the word didn't fit. "Girlfriend?" "Yes." "Me." "Tolani." She nodded too fast, praying he couldn't hear her heart racing. He tried to sit up. Pain sliced through his ribs. She reached out instinctively. "Don't move too much, please." He caught her wrist, eyes narrowing. "You talk different. Not Korean." She exhaled a nervous laugh. "Ah, that's because I'm a special edition from Nigeria. International girlfriend, you know." For the first time, a small, reluctant smile tugged his lips. The nurses exchanged relieved glances. Good sign, memory response. But the truth sat heavy in her throat. A doctor stepped in. "Mr. Lee Jun-ha, you suffered a mild head injury. Short-term memory loss is common. You may not recall recent events. This lady says she's your partner. You should rest and trust her for now." Tolani swallowed hard. Partner? The word felt like both protection and prison. When the staff left, Jun-ha leaned back, studying her with quiet intensity. "What were we like?" he asked. Our relationship." Her brain scrambled. She couldn't exactly say, fake but functional. So she smiled gently. We were peaceful. We pray a lot. No shouting, no drama." "Prayer," he echoed, tasting the unfamiliar word. Then you must like God. Love him, she corrected softly. You were learning. He nodded as if that made sense, though a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. Still, her calm voice steadied him, and for now he accepted the lie as truth. Hours later, when he dozed, Tolani slipped to the hallway. The weight of what she'd done crashed on her. She'd lied to a man with no memory, tied herself to a stranger whose world she didn't understand. But outside that glass door waited Kunnel, anger and fists. Inside was safety and kindness she hadn't felt in months. She whispered upward, Lord, I know this is madness, but please let it lead somewhere merciful. Behind her, Junha stirred again and called softly, Tolani! She turned. Don't leave me, he said, eyes still half closed. Her heart twisted. I'm here, she replied, voice trembling. I'm not going anywhere. And though she meant it only for the night, both heaven and Seoul would remember that promise far longer than she planned. By the third morning, Lee Junha could walk without wobbling. The nurses whispered that his recovery was miraculous. Tolani called it evidence that God answers confused prayers. She was packing the fruit she'd bought when the glass door slid open. A woman in an ivory suit swept in, hair silver, posture sharp as a blade. Chairwoman Kong Soo-min, one nurse breathed. Tolani straightened instinctively. The woman's eyes, cool and exact, flicked from Junha to her. So, she said in careful English, this is the girlfriend my grandson refused to introduce to the family. Tolani's knees nearly buckled. Good morning, Ma. The older woman smiled like a queen testing a pawn. Your accent is charming. Then to the doctor. Prepare him for discharge. He'll recover at home. Home. Tolani's stomach turned. If she let him go, Kunnel would find her again. But if she followed, she'd be living a lie under the same roof as a man who thought she was his lover. Junha looked at her and simply said, She comes with me. Chairwoman Kong raised an eyebrow. You're certain? Yes. She's the only one who calms the noise in my head. It was the truth in his way. Tolani's voice steadied the blank spaces in his mind. That evening, a black sedan carried them through rain-washed streets to the glass-walled penthouse of the Kong Group empire. Guards bowed. Elevators whispered open. Tolani stepped into marble in silence, so polished she could see her fear reflected on the floor. A butler guided her to a guest room adjoining Junha's suite. She clasped her hands together. Please tell me this door locks from both sides. Yes, miss, he replied, politely confused. Good, she whispered. Because Holy Spirit or not, I need boundaries. Later, she served him soup because she couldn't just sit still while he winced at the foremark on his arm. He watched her. You take care of me like we've done this before. She smiled faintly. Maybe love is muscle memory. He looked at her, a little too long, until she felt heat crawl up her neck. To distract him, she said, When you're fully healed, we'll go to church. That's our Sunday routine. Church? Yes. You promised me we'd go together every week. He nodded slowly, as if that vow already lived somewhere in his bones. Then I'll keep that promise. When he finally slept, Tolani stood by the window, soul glittering beneath her. Her reflection stared back, just a girl who'd lied herself into safety and somehow into someone's heart. She folded her arms and whispered, half plea, half prayer, Lord, please teach me how to survive truth when it finally comes knocking. Morning sunlight slipped through the tall penthouse windows, painting gold lines across the marble floor. Tolani stood in the kitchen, wearing one of the maid's aprons that looked like it cost more than her whole rent. She stirred congee carefully, humming a gospel tune under her breath. Junha walked in quietly, still in his robe. The sight of him, calm, hair mussed, expression half awake, made her heart do a nervous flip she quickly rebuked. Focus, Tolani. Soup, not sin. You're cooking, he said, voice rough from sleep. Trying to. Don't ask for jollof rice. I'm still traumatized from the last one I burnt. He chuckled, a low, soft sound that made her glance up. You're funny for a church girl. She smiled. Humor is free, and holiness doesn't mean boredom. He took a spoonful of her congee and nodded. Good. Tolani folded her arms. See, you didn't die. That's progress. They ate in companionable silence. But as the hours stretched, Junha grew restless. He explored the penthouse, testing his memory. Everything felt familiar, the expensive stillness, the framed art, the cold precision of space, but no emotions followed. Only Tolani's voice had weight, anchoring him when his head throbbed. Later, he found her folding laundry neatly by the sofa. "You're organized," he said. She laughed. "You sound surprised. Did I look like a scatterbrain when you fell in love with me?" "I don't remember falling in love," he said, stepping closer. "But every time you speak, I feel like I should have." The air shifted. Tolani swallowed hard. "Sir, this laundry is for the Lord's glory. Please don't stand so near." He tilted his head. "Did I always make you nervous?" "You make me cautious," which is the polite version of nervous. He smiled faintly, but his gaze lingered too long, heavy with questions neither dared to ask. That evening, as rain began to fall again, she sat by his bedside reading her Bible aloud. He watched her, head tilted, eyes soft. "You really believe that?" he asked quietly. "Yes, and I believe it too." "You were learning," she said, smiling. "Baby steps toward heaven." Something in her voice made him reach for her hand. "Then teach me again." Tolani froze. "First lesson, personal space is the beginning of holiness." He laughed under his breath, but didn't let go. "Then I'm already failing." She gently slipped her hand free and stood. "Good night, Mr. Lee." He frowned. "You call me June, huh?" "Later. When you deserve it." She turned off the light, leaving only the faint reflection of city lights across his face. As he drifted to sleep, he whispered, "You make the silence feel safe." And in the dark, Tolani smiled to herself. Lord, that's how trouble starts. Tolani woke to find the smell of coffee floating through the penthouse. It startled her. Junha in a kitchen was as strange as an angel doing laundry. When she peeked inside, he stood shirt-sleeved by the counter, trying and failing to fry eggs. "You'll burn the pan," she said, half laughing. He looked up, smile crooked. "You cook for me every morning. I thought I'd return the favor. You could have favored me with sleep instead." He shrugged. "Couldn't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I see pieces of something. Roads, lights, maybe a gun, then your face." Her hand froze on the counter. "Gun. Maybe. I don't know. But you," he looked at her directly, "you calm it." Tolani swallowed. "That's good. I'm very calming. Ask my church people." He chuckled. "You deflect everything with jokes. And you ask dangerous questions before breakfast." He poured the eggs, scrambled chaos, onto a plate. "Taste it." She lifted a forkful, chewed, and grimaced. "You need deliverance, sir." He laughed, warm and unguarded, and for a moment the world felt normal. Later, she cleaned the living room while humming softly. Junha sat nearby, watching her fold napkins into perfect triangles. "Why do you keep everything so neat?" he asked. "Because order brings peace, and because mess invites demons." "Really? Spiritual or emotional, choose your demon." He smiled, but his gaze lingered. "You don't let me touch you, even by accident." Tolani kept folding. Boundaries are like fences around joy. They keep wild goats from eating the garden. He stood, closing the distance between them until she could smell the faint spice of his cologne. "And if I'm the goat?" She looked up, calm but firm. "Then I'll pray you into a pasture far away." Their eyes held for a heartbeat too long before she turned back to her task. Humor was her shield, respect her sword. But every time he smiled that quiet smile, her defenses trembled a little more. That night, thunder rolled again. Junha stood by the glass wall, city lights reflecting off his face. "Tolani," he said softly, "do you think I was a good man before?" She hesitated. "I think you can be now. That's what matters." He turned. Eyes shadowed. "And if remembering proves I wasn't?" "Then forget it again," she whispered. He stepped toward her, slow, deliberate, heart in his eyes. "Maybe you're my memory." Her breath caught. "Sir, if you cross this line, I'll start singing hymns." He stopped inches away, smiling faintly. "Then at least I'll dream to music." When she finally escaped to her room, she pressed a hand over her racing heart and whispered, half scolding, half praying, "Lord, keep me holy, because this man is a full-time temptation wearing cologne." Rain poured over Seoul again, thin silver lines slicing through the night. Talani loved rain when it stayed polite, but this one carried memories. The kind that whispered, "He'll find you." She stood by the window, humming softly to drown the unease in her chest. Junha was in the study, reading reports his assistant had brought, old documents that looked too dangerous for an amnesiac. When she came to remind him about dinner, she caught him staring at a photo, his grandmother, a younger man beside her, and soldiers. Her voice shook slightly. "You were in the army?" He blinked. "I don't know. Maybe business. Everything feels half-lit." "Then stop forcing it," she said gently. "Let memories come when peace does." He looked at her, admiration flickering behind confusion. "You always sound like a sermon." She smiled faintly. "I'm an unpaid motivational speaker, for heaven." Later that evening, she went to the small market near the penthouse to buy flour and honey. The air was cool, the streets half empty. She tucked her scarf tighter against the drizzle. She didn't see him at first. Not until she turned a corner and heard that voice, the one that once made her shrink inside herself. "Tola!" Her blood froze. Kunal stood under the dim streetlight, rain dripping down his face, anger burning in his eyes. "You've been hiding well," he sneered, "with that Korean lover of yours." "Kunal, please don't cause a scene." He stepped closer. "You think you're better than me? You owe me." She kept her voice steady. "I owe you nothing but forgiveness. Now move." He grabbed her wrist, tight, familiar pain. "You don't walk away from me again." Before she could scream, headlights cut through the rain. A black car stopped. The door opened. Junha. He moved like controlled thunder, eyes hard as he saw Kunal's hand on her. "Let her go," he said quietly. Kunal laughed. "And who are you?" Junha's tone was calm, but something deadly lurked beneath. "The man you should have prayed never to meet." He pulled Kunal's hand off Tolani, almost gently, but his grip was steel. The ex winced, dropping back. Tolani stood frozen, breath shaky. "Please, no fighting." Junha didn't strike, didn't shout. He simply said, "Walk away. Now." Kunal hesitated, reading the quiet promise of danger in Junha's stance. He spat on the ground and backed off into the rain. Tolani exhaled, shaking. Junha turned to her, voice soft again. "You know him?" "Yes," she whispered. "My past." He searched her eyes. "Is he why you were afraid that night at the clinic?" She nodded. Junha's jaw tightened. "Then as long as I'm breathing, he won't touch you again." For a moment, Tolani forgot about lies, about guilt. All she felt was safety, warm, absolute, and dangerous in its comfort. The rain followed them home like an uninvited ghost. Tolani sat silently in the car, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles ached. Junha drove without speaking, jaws set, eyes fixed on the dark road. When they reached the penthouse, he turned off the ignition and looked at her. His voice was calm, but every word trembled with restrained anger. "He hurt you before, didn't he?" Tolani blinked back tears. "It's not important now." "It is to me." She met his eyes. "Yes, but I survived. God helped me. Please don't look at me like I'm broken." That last sentence silenced him. He reached out, paused midway, and asked quietly, "May I?" She nodded. His hand brushed hers, gentle as a prayer. "You're not broken," he said. "You're the bravest woman I've ever met." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You don't remember many women, so that compliment is half price." He chuckled softly. "Then I'll double it when I remember more." They stepped inside. Tolani's soaked clothes clung to her, so she rushed to the guest room. When she came back wrapped in a blanket, Junha was pacing the living room. "You need protection," he said firmly. "I'll assign 2 guards to watch the street." "I don't need bodyguards," she replied. "I need peace." "You'll have both." She sighed, sitting on the couch. "You sound like you used to give orders for a living." He frowned. "Maybe I did. It feels natural." Tolani muttered, "So bossiness runs in your bloodstream." "Great." He smiled, small, genuine. "Would it help if I said please?" "Yes, sir." "And thank you, too. It keeps the Holy Spirit near." He walked closer. "Thank you for staying by my side." Her heart softened instantly. "You're welcome. Just try not to kill my ex." No promises. Later that night, Tolani brewed chamomile tea and carried a cup to him. He took it without looking away from the window, city lights glinting across his reflection. When I saw him touch you, he said slowly, something in me woke up. Anger, possessiveness, fear, maybe love, she whispered before she could stop herself. He turned, eyes dark and searching. Love! She panicked. I meant Christian love, universal compassion. John 3 verse 16 type. He smirked. You're terrible at lying. I'm fantastic at surviving. He stepped closer again, lowering his voice. Then survive me too. For a heartbeat, the air between them hummed. Too close, too warm. Then Tolani stood abruptly. Good night. The Holy Spirit doesn't like overtime shifts. She fled to her room, heart thundering against her ribs. Behind her, Junha whispered to the empty room. Then he better forgive me soon, because I can't stop thinking about her. Days after the confrontation, calm returned to the penthouse, but not peace. The silence between Tolani and Junha was charged with everything they hadn't said. Every morning, she made breakfast while humming softly. He sat at the dining table pretending to read, eyes following her more than the paper. Sometimes she caught him watching and raised an eyebrow. Eat your food, sir. My service doesn't count as devotion. He'd smirk. Maybe I'm fasting from food, not beauty. Ah, you better add repentance to that fasting, she'd reply, laughter spilling between them. One afternoon, she dusted the bookshelves in the study and found an old journal hidden behind files. She opened it. Names, numbers, coded symbols. Her stomach turned. This wasn't a business journal. Before she could process, Junha entered quietly. What's that? Something that doesn't look like church accounts, she said carefully. He took it, flipping through pages, expression tightening. I wrote this. I don't know, but whoever did had dangerous handwriting. He set the book down, rubbing his temple. Every time I see things like this, I feel two people inside me. The one I was and the one I want to be. Tolani reached for his hand before she could stop herself. Then choose the one you want. The past doesn't own you unless you rent its space. Her touch lingered longer than it should have. His eyes searched hers. Why do you keep saving me? She smiled faintly. Because God won't let me mind my business. That evening, thunder rolled again, and she found him standing on the balcony, rain misting across his face. His shirt clung to his skin, the storm lighting him like a secret carved in silver. You'll catch a cold, she said, stepping outside with an umbrella. He looked at her, eyes dark and unreadable. Tell me the truth. Before the accident, did I love you? Tolani's breath hitched. You said it every day, she lied softly, because somehow it had become true. He smiled faintly. Then I'll say it again until I remember how it felt. Please don't, she whispered. Love's not a game, Junha. I don't think I'm playing. He took one step closer. The umbrella trembled in her hand. Their eyes locked. Rain, breath, heartbeat, all too close. Go inside, she managed. This weather encourages sin. He chuckled, low and rough. Then maybe I should stay in it a little longer. She turned quickly, retreating indoors, pressing her back to the wall, heartbeat racing. Lord, she murmured, half smiling, half terrified, you're testing me with fine men and thunder. This is unfair. And though she tried to sleep that night, her heart kept whispering the same prayer over and over. Please don't let him remember yet. Not now. Not when love feels this dangerous. It began as an ordinary morning. The city was quiet after the storm, and Tolani decided to visit Auntie Beezy's shop to buy fresh bread. She left a note for Junha on the table, gone for breakfast ingredients. Don't follow me, sir. Half joke, half command. But she never made it back. At the corner of the market street, a van pulled up beside her. Before she could scream, a cloth covered her face, sweet and chemical. The world folded into darkness. When she woke, her wrists were tied, the air thick with oil and damp metal. A flickering bulb swung overhead. Then came a voice she had prayed never to hear again. Tola baby, Colonel drawled. Long time. She swallowed hard. You're insane. Insane? No. Hurt, he said, pacing. You embarrassed me. Ran away, hid with that Korean rich boy. You think you can make me look small. I think you made yourself small the day you hit me, she said, trembling but defiant. He slapped her, Not hard enough to kill, just to remind her he could. Still got that sharp mouth. Her lip bled, but her eyes didn't flinch. You can't cage me again. Someone will find me. He laughed. That pretty boy. He won't even know where to start. Back at the penthouse, Junha noticed the untouched note and a silence that didn't feel like peace. He called her phone, no answer. He called again, still nothing. The unease in his chest hardened into something older, sharper. Hyun, he barked. His head of security appeared instantly. She's missing, Junha said. Find her. Track every camera near the market. Within the hour, they found footage. A van, black, unmarked. License plate faked. Junha's knuckles whitened. Bring the car, he ordered. Now. He didn't wait for the police. He didn't even question how he knew which roads to take or how to handle a gun he hadn't touched since the accident. Muscle memory guided him. Instinct burned brighter than thought. The van was parked near an abandoned warehouse. Junha entered alone, silent as shadow. Inside, Kunal leaned over Tolani, still ranting. I'll record you begging. Let's see if your rich boyfriend still wants damaged goods. Tolani lifted her chin. He doesn't need to want me. He respects me, something you'll never understand. A voice cut through the air. Step away from her. Kunal turned. Junha stood in the doorway, rain dripping off his coat, eyes like steel. Who are you? Kunal spat. The man you shouldn't have touched. He moved fast. One disarm, a twist, a hit to the ribs. Kunal went down gasping. Tolani shouted, Stop. Don't kill him. Junha froze, breath ragged. Her voice cut through the haze of rage like light through fog. He dropped the pipe, chest heaving. She whispered, Let's go home. He untied her, hand trembling as it brushed her bruised wrist. You're safe, he said softly. Her eyes filled. I knew you'd come. Always, he murmured. Outside, thunder rolled again, and with it came the first flicker of memory, blood, headlights, the world he'd forgotten creeping back. The hospital smelled of rain and disinfectant. Tolani sat on the edge of the bed, her wrists bandaged, watching the foredrip tick like a metronome of calm after chaos. Junha stood by the window, his soaked black coat discarded, his knuckles still raw. He hadn't said a word since they'd returned. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost reverent. He could have killed you. Tolani looked down. But you didn't let him. He turned to her, eyes dark and unreadable. I don't even know why I knew how to fight like that. Every move felt practiced. She smiled faintly, trying to soften the storm in his eyes. Maybe God sent you to a few self-defense classes before the accident. He didn't smile back. No, that was training, not prayer. He walked closer. Tolani, what if I'm not the good man you think I am? She met his gaze, calm and steady. Then become him. That simple answer silenced him more than any sermon could. Later that night, he couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but the noise in his head had not. Every time he closed his eyes, flashes attacked him, cars speeding, gunfire, men bowing, a ledger soaked in blood. He woke with a gasp, sweat beading his forehead. Tolani rushed in. You're okay, you're safe. He grabbed her hand, trembling. I remember. Remember what? Everything. His voice cracked, half disbelief, half horror. I was never a soldier. I was worse. I ran an empire that thrived on fear. People obeyed me because they were scared. Tolani froze, watching the man before her change, his posture straighter, his gaze sharper, his softness swallowed by truth. Junha. He took a step back. No. Don't say my name like that. You lied to me. Her throat closed. I can explain. He laughed bitterly. You pretended to be my girlfriend. You built your safety on my confusion. Tears gathered in her eyes. I was running for my life. They asked for his girlfriend. I just raised my hand. He looked at her as if seeing a stranger. So it was all a lie. She shook her head desperately. No. Maybe it started that way, but I meant everything after. You were more than a lie to me. His silence cut deeper than shouting. Finally, he said coldly, You're safe now. He can't hurt you anymore. You don't need me. Please. Leave. She stood frozen for a second, then bowed slightly, voice trembling but polite. Thank you for saving my life. Then she walked out, the door closing softly behind her. Junha stood alone in the sterile light, memory flooding back in cruel color. He had regained his empire, but lost the only peace he'd ever known. The night she left, Seoul felt quieter than usual. The city lights still glowed, but to Tolani, they looked like scattered embers, beautiful, distant, and cold. Auntie Beezy opened the apartment door with wide eyes. Yezu! Tolani Adebayo, what happened to you? Tolani tried to smile through the tears threatening to fall. Nothing, Ma. I just came home. Auntie pulled her in, shaking her head. You left looking like peace. You came back looking like heartbreak. Sit down. Tell me who I'm fasting against. Tolani let out a watery laugh. No fasting, Ma. Just lessons. She explained everything in small, broken sentences. The accident, the lie, the safety that became love, and the truth that ruined both. Auntie listened, silent until the end. Then she said softly, sometimes God hides us in strange places. But when he brings the truth out, he expects us to walk upright, even when it hurts. Tolani nodded, eyes glistening. I lied to save myself, but now I've lost the one person who made me feel safe. Across the city, in his penthouse, Junha poured himself a glass of water that tasted like guilt. He stood by the window where she used to pray and hum, staring at the empty space she'd filled with laughter. Every corner still held her, the mug she used, the folded blanket on the couch, the faint scent of honey and soap. Hyun entered quietly. Sir, are we resuming the Kong business meetings? Tomorrow, Junha said flatly. Hyun hesitated. And Miss Tolani? She's gone, he replied, his voice too calm. She got what she wanted, safety. But later, alone, his composure cracked. He remembered her saying, brokenness isn't the end, it's the start of rebuilding. He realized she had been the only person who spoke to him as if he were human, not power. And he had sent her away. At Auntie Beezy's the next morning, Tolani folded her few clothes into a small suitcase. Between every shirt, she tucked a prayer. She planned to return to her old bakery job and volunteer again at Grace Chapel. If she was going to heal, she would do it the way she knew best. Quietly, faithfully, with flour on her hands and hymns on her lips. But sometimes, while kneading dough, her mind drifted to his voice, low, careful, calling her name like a promise he hadn't meant to make. And sometimes, standing by his window, Junha caught himself whispering, Tolani, to the empty air. They were both learning the same lesson on opposite sides of a city. Love doesn't die in silence. It lingers, waiting for courage to call it back. A month passed, but time didn't heal as easily as people claimed. For Tolani, morning started with the smell of bread baking and ended with the ache of what-ifs. She threw herself into work at the bakery, greeting every customer with her trademark humor. Smile, sir. Even Jesus likes cheerful bread buyers. They laughed, but inside, she was holding herself together with prayer and powdered sugar. Every Sunday, she stood in her usual corner at Grace Chapel, eyes closed, singing softly. Her voice had changed. It carried something heavier now, something broken but beautiful. One afternoon after service, Auntie Beezy said, That young man has not called or come, eh? Tolani shook her head gently. Some stories and quietly, Ma. Auntie sighed. Or they pause until the next miracle. Across Seoul, in the glass tower that smelled of power and regret, Junha sat behind his desk. Files lay untouched, the city's mafia balance shifting back under his control. But he was different. He had stopped raising his voice. He donated to women's shelters anonymously. And every time someone asked why, he said, Because peace is a currency too. At night, he replayed her words. The past doesn't own you unless you rent its space. He tried not to remember the feel of her laugh filling his living room. He tried not to think of the way she prayed before meals, or how she always added too much honey to tea. But forgetting her was like trying to command the sea to be still. He finally started going to Grace Chapel, not because he believed, but because it was the last place she said his name with love. He never stayed for the full service, just enough to hear the choir. One quiet evening, Tolani was closing the bakery when a delivery boy dropped an envelope on the counter. Inside was a single line written in elegant handwriting. For every lie that saved a life, there's a truth waiting to heal it. L.J. Her hands trembled. The initials told her everything. But the note wasn't an apology, it was an invitation. She pressed the paper to her chest, whispering, "Lord, if this is another test, please let it end with peace." That night she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying his voice, the look in his eyes when he'd said, "You don't need me." But deep down she knew he needed her more than either of them had admitted. And somewhere, standing by his office window, Junha looked at the stars and whispered into the night, "If I could forget everything again, I'd still find my way back to you." Talani read the note again the next morning as sunlight streamed through the bakery windows. Her hands still smelled of dough, but her heart smelled of fear and possibility. She flipped the envelope. On the back, a neat address was written, the Heir Foundation. Auntie Beezy leaned over the counter. "You're squinting like the paper will confess something." "What is it?" Talani hesitated, then sighed. "An address. A man's address." Talani blushed. "A foundation's. Maybe both." Auntie grinned. "Then we're perfume and humility. Both attract favor." That afternoon, Talani stood outside a glass building overlooking the Han River. The sign above read the Heir Foundation, Hope for Women in Need. Her throat tightened. The name wasn't random, it was purpose. Inside, volunteers moved with calm precision. A receptionist smiled. "Welcome. Do you have an appointment?" Talani held up the note. "Someone invited me." The woman nodded knowingly. "Please wait upstairs." When the elevator doors opened, Junha stood at the far end of a sunlit room, wearing a black suit with no tie, sleeves rolled, eyes softer than she remembered. He turned as if he'd known the exact second she would arrive. "You came." "I almost didn't." "But you did," he said, voice quiet. "That's enough." Talani crossed her arms. "What is this place?" He gestured around. "A start. I funded it after everything. It shelters women escaping abusive homes. It's under your name, too." She blinked. "Mine. I registered it as a tribute to the woman who taught me what protection should look like." Talani's lips parted. "You didn't have to." "I did," he cut in gently. "I owed you truth." He walked closer, the sunlight outlining his frame. "I know I hurt you when I sent you away. I thought I was protecting you from the part of me I used to be. But all I did was prove I hadn't changed." She swallowed. "And now I want to earn forgiveness, not ask for it." Talani looked at the wall of photos. Women smiling, children playing, lives rebuilt. Something in her heart softened. "You turned your empire into mercy," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You turned my heart into one." A long silence stretched. Then she said, "This is beautiful. But I can't stay here just because you feel sorry." His gaze held hers. "Then stay because you believe again." Later that evening, Talani stood outside the building, clutching the note. The city hummed around her, but inside she felt still, like hope was whispering, maybe it's safe to try again. Behind the glass above, Junha watched her go, smiling quietly. He didn't follow. Not yet, because love deserved patience this time. For 2 weeks, Talani kept visiting the Heir Foundation. Not because she had agreed to stay, but because something about the place healed her in pieces. She helped register women who came seeking shelter, served them food, and taught them how to pray without shame. Every corner of that building felt like a second chance. Sometimes, she'd catch glimpses of Junha from afar, never commanding, never interrupting. He only watched with quiet respect. When their eyes met, he'd smile softly, as if saying, "I'll wait as long as it takes." One evening, after everyone had left, Talani stayed behind to pack donation boxes. She didn't notice Junha approach until a shadow stretched beside hers. "You're always the last to leave," he said. She smiled faintly. "Some debts can only be paid with service." "You don't owe me anything, Talani." "I know. But maybe I owe the girl I used to be, the one who stayed silent too long." He nodded slowly, admiring the quiet strength in her voice. "You've changed." "So have you," she said, meeting his eyes. "You listen more. You command less. That's your influence." If I start charging consultation fees, you'll be broke." He laughed, a real laugh this time. The sound filled the empty hall like music. Then silence settled again, heavy with words neither dared to say. He took a deep breath. "Can I tell you something?" She turned. "As long as it's not another secret. When I lost my memory, I thought I'd been given mercy. When I got it back, I realized mercy had been standing beside me all along. Talani blinked away tears. You're still dramatic. He smiled faintly. Maybe, but I'm also honest now. I love you. Not the way I imagined before, powerful, possessive, but the way you taught me. Honest, patient, free. Her throat tightened. You don't have to say that to ease guilt. He shook his head. I don't feel guilt anymore. Just longing. Talani hesitated, searching his eyes for the man she once lied to and the man who had become truth itself. I don't know if I can trust love again, she said softly. Then let me earn it like breath, he replied. Slowly, until it feels natural again. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. He didn't reach to wipe them. He'd learned not to touch without invitation. Instead, he said quietly, You once prayed for my soul. Now I'm praying for your heart. She smiled through tears. Looks like we're finally on the same team. Outside, the sun dipped over Seoul, casting gold across the Han River. It felt like heaven whispering, This is what redemption looks like. For weeks, peace returned like dawn. Slow, steady, and cautious. Talani and Junha worked side by side at the foundation, their conversations light but full of undercurrents. They shared smiles across hallways, laughter over coffee, and the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. But peace, as Talani knew too well, was often tested. One evening, as they reviewed funding requests, Junha received a call. His expression hardened, old instincts flickering through the calm. Chairwoman Kong wants to reinstate the family business. She says I'm soft now. Talani looked up from the papers. And what will you do? He sighed. I don't know. Part of me wants to prove her wrong. Another part doesn't care about power anymore. She reached across the table, her hand stopping just before his. Power doesn't define you, Junha. Purpose does. He smiled faintly. And you think mine is paperwork and charity. I think yours is peace. You fought enough wars for a lifetime. He leaned back, studying her. You make it sound simple. It is simple, just not easy. Later that night, Talani stayed behind to lead the women's prayer meeting. She stood before a small group, her sleek bun damp with sweat, voice soft but firm. Sometimes, God doesn't remove the storm. He just gives you an umbrella and the courage to walk through it. Junha watched from the doorway unseen. Her voice carried like grace itself. The way she spoke, confident, compassionate, filled the empty hall and the cracks in his soul. When the meeting ended, she found him there. Spying on church girls again, she teased. He chuckled. Just admiring leadership. You mean stubbornness? Same thing, in prettier packaging. She laughed, but her gaze softened. You're afraid, aren't you? He frowned. Of what? Of falling again. Not in love, but into your old life. He looked down, voice low. Every night I pray that I don't wake up the man I was. She nodded. Then keep praying. Because faith isn't about who you've been. It's about who you're becoming. Their eyes met, quiet and sincere. The air between them hummed with affection and reverence. You really believe in me, don't you? He asked. Talani smiled. I believe in the God who can remake anyone. Even you. Later, as she walked home, the rain started again, soft, familiar. She lifted her face to it and whispered, Lord, if love is truly from you, let it last this time. In the distance, Junha stood at the foundation's window, watching her disappear into the streetlights. He pressed a hand to the glass and murmured, If faith is the test, then I'll pass it, even if it takes the rest of my life. The night was thick with thunder again, the kind that made glass tremble and memories stir. Talani had stayed late at the foundation, finishing reports by candlelight when the storm knocked out the power. She wrapped her shawl tighter, humming a hymn to keep calm. Outside, lightning flashed, and through it she saw movement. A figure. Two more behind it. Her heart dropped. Within minutes, the front doors rattled. She grabbed her phone and whispered a shaky prayer. Lord, you gave David a sling. Give me signal. The door burst open. Men in black masks stormed in, shouting in Korean. She recognized one voice immediately, rough, furious, unforgettable. Where is he? Colonel barked, stepping from the shadows. Talani's world spun. You again. He sneered. You thought I'd rot in jail? Money buys freedom, darling. And I came to collect interest. She backed away, voice shaking but firm. This is a shelter, Colonel. You'll leave the same way you came, empty. He laughed, grabbing her wrist. Still righteous. Still mine. Meanwhile, across town, Junha's phone buzzed. A security alert. Foundation breach. He didn't hesitate. Hyun, assemble a team, he ordered, already grabbing his coat. Sir, the police. No time. She's there. The storm swallowed the sound of tires as his car cut through flooded streets. His mind replayed her words. You've fought enough wars for a lifetime. But this time, he wasn't fighting for power. He was fighting for peace, and for her. Inside the dark foundation hall, Tolani swung a chair at Colonel, catching his arm. He yelped, staggered, and raised his hand to strike, but the door slammed open. Junha stepped in, drenched and furious, flanked by his guards. Touch her, he said quietly, and you'll never use that hand again. Colonel sneered, desperate. Oh, look, the hero returns. You think you can scare me? No, Junha replied calmly. But I can end this. He moved fast, disarming one man with a sharp twist, kicking another into a table. Colonel lunged, knife flashing. Tolani screamed. Junha! The blade nicked his arm before Hyun tackled Colonel to the ground. Junha turned to her, ignoring the pain. Are you hurt? She shook her head, tears mixing with rain. No, just scared. He exhaled shakily, pulling her close. Then let's end fear tonight. Police sirens wailed outside as the men were dragged away. Tolani clung to him, whispering, You promised you'd never fight again. He smiled faintly. I didn't fight to win. I fought to protect peace and you. By dawn, the storm had passed. The first light touched the Han River, painting everything gold. Tolani looked at him, eyes soft. You bled for me again. He smiled. Worth it. Then heal with me this time, she whispered. No more storms alone. He nodded, rain still glistening in his hair. No more. The morning after the storm came softly, like the world was afraid to breathe too loudly. Sunlight spilled into the foundation's small medical office, painting gentle gold on white walls. Tolani sat beside Junha as a nurse stitched the cut on his arm. He winced once, but his eyes never left her face. When it was done, she dismissed the nurse politely and turned to him with her hands on her hips. You call that not fighting? He smiled faintly. It was defensive holiness. Holiness doesn't throw punches. Junha. Then mine's a work in progress. She sighed, shaking her head but unable to hide her smile. You could have died. And if I had, at least it wouldn't be from doing nothing. Tolani sat down, the humor fading from her eyes. You scared me. He looked at her seriously. You've been scared long enough. I promised you safety. I intend to keep it. For a moment, silence wrapped them like warm cloth. Then she reached for his hand, bandaged, steady. Why do you keep risking everything for me? He answered without hesitation. Because you risked truth for me first. Because you stayed when I was nothing but questions. Her throat tightened. That's not love, that's gratitude. He shook his head. It started as gratitude. Now it's something deeper. You taught me mercy. You made me want to live better, not for reputation, but for peace. Tolani blinked fast, whispering, Peace doesn't erase the past. No, he said softly, but forgiveness redefines it. She looked at him, really looked, the man who had once been a mystery, a sinner, a storm. Now, sitting before her with humility and warmth, he felt like the answer to a prayer she didn't know she'd made. Forgiveness is easy to preach, she murmured. Harder to practice. He smiled. Then practice on me. She burst out laughing through tears. You're impossible. I'm improving, he said, eyes twinkling. Later, they walked to the balcony, overlooking the Han River. The air smelled of wet stone and jasmine. Junha leaned against the railing, sunlight glinting off the bandage on his arm. You know, Tolani said, you could just come to church instead of giving God these dramatic performances. He laughed softly. He listens better when thunder's involved. Or maybe he listens because he knows you love a good entrance. He looked at her, gaze gentle but sure. You've forgiven me, haven't you? Tolani smiled, voice barely above a whisper. Forgiveness isn't a gift I give, it's the proof that I've healed. She stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on his chest. And maybe I'm finally healing. He covered her hand with his, heartbeat strong beneath her palm. Then let's stay in that miracle a while. The river shimmered in the morning light. For the first time, both believed the storm had truly passed. 3 weeks after the storm, peace had become a habit. The Era Foundation buzzed with quiet purpose, and for the first time, laughter felt easy again. Talani now worked there officially. Not as Junha's girlfriend, not as anyone's secret, just as Tolani Adebayo, coordinator and counselor. Her sleek bun had become a symbol around the center. Every new woman who arrived whispered, "That's her, the one who turned mercy into strength." Junha tried to stay out of her way at first. He wanted to prove he respected her independence, but his eyes always found her. In staff meetings, during tea breaks, while she taught cooking lessons to the younger women, his gaze lingered, soft and reverent. One afternoon, he caught her in the garden, kneeling to repot flowers near the courtyard fountain. "You're supposed to be resting, not gardening," he teased. She looked up, smiling. "You're supposed to be in your office, not hovering. Maybe I like the view better here." "Ah, flattery. It's too early for that. Is there ever a wrong time?" She laughed, shaking her head. "Yes, every time you forget I'm immune to sweet talk." "Then I'll keep practicing until you're not." He crouched beside her, dirt on his expensive trousers, expression unbothered. Together, they planted a small sprig of jasmine. Their fingers brushed in the soil. Small, simple contact, yet both froze. Tolani pulled back first, clearing her throat. "If this flower dies, you're watering it next time." He grinned. "If it grows, you're going to dinner with me." She frowned playfully. "And if it does both?" "Then we'll call it balance," he said softly. "Like us." That evening, as twilight deepened, they sat under the veranda watching lanterns flicker along the river. The scent of rain still lingered in the air. Tolani broke the silence first. "You know, we never actually started right." "I know," he said quietly. "We started with fear. Then maybe we should begin again with honesty." He turned to face her fully. "All right, I'll go first. I love you." Her heart tripped, but she stayed composed. "You don't waste time, do you?" "I wasted enough already." She looked at him, saw truth, no manipulation, no hidden agenda. Just a man who'd learned the language of peace. "I'm not promising forever," she said softly. "Just today, but I'll stay if you mean every word." He smiled. "Then today's enough for me." As they watched the lanterns drift down the Han River, Junha whispered, "Second chances aren't given. They're built." Tolani nodded, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. "Then let's keep building." The jasmine bloomed quietly behind them. Seoul's night sky shimmered like a velvet canvas scattered with tiny prayers. From the rooftop garden of the foundation, the city looked distant, hushed, almost kind. Lanterns swayed softly in the breeze, carrying the fragrance of jasmine, the same one they had planted together. Tolani leaned on the balcony rail, eyes lifted toward the stars. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to look at the sky and ask God why he let me go through so much pain. But now, I think he was teaching me how to recognize peace when I finally saw it." Behind her, Junha smiled faintly. "And do you see it now?" She turned, her sleek bun glowing softly under the lights. "It's standing right behind me, apparently." He laughed softly, but his eyes stayed gentle. "You make everything sound like poetry." "I make everything sound like survival," she corrected. "It's how I cope." He stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "Then let's survive together. No lies, no running, no pretending." She tilted her head. "Even when it gets difficult?" "Especially then." They sat side by side on a wooden bench, the night breeze curling around them. Junha opened a small velvet box, a silver necklace with a tiny cross. "It's not an engagement," he said quickly. "Just a promise. To protect peace, not control it. To love you without owning you." Tolani smiled softly, touched beyond words. "A promise that sounds suspiciously holy." He grinned. "You've been a bad influence." She took the necklace, fingers trembling slightly as she fastened it around her neck. The pendant rested against her skin, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "So are you." Her cheeks warmed. You're still dramatic. Always, he said, but never dishonest again. The wind picked up, scattering the petals of the blooming jasmine around them. She caught one and held it out. This flower survived the storm, she said. He took it gently from her hand. So did we. A long silence followed, peaceful, comfortable. Then Junha said quietly, Do you ever regret lying that night? Talani thought for a moment. Every day, she admitted. But I thank God for it too. Because that lie saved both of us, just in different ways. He nodded, emotion thick in his voice. Then let's make truth our new beginning. She looked up at him, eyes soft with trust. And what truth do you want tonight? He smiled. That I love you in peace, not chaos. Talani's laughter was soft, tearful. She reached for his hand. Then keep loving me like that. And I'll keep praying we never forget why we began again. As the stars glowed brighter overhead, they sat quietly, two souls once broken, now whole again under heaven's watchful light. Sunday morning rose over Seoul with a soft golden warmth that touched everything it met. The river shimmered, the foundation courtyard buzzed with laughter, and the air carried the scent of fresh jasmine. Grace Chapel was fuller than usual that day. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting soft colors across wooden pews. Talani stood at the front beside the choir, her voice calm but strong as she led the hymn. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Her tone trembled with sincerity, not sorrow. For the first time in years, she wasn't singing from pain, she was singing from gratitude. At the back pew, Junha watched quietly. He wasn't there for appearances. He didn't even understand every word of the song. But he understood her, the way her spirit filled the room, the way her peace had become contagious. When service ended, she walked down the aisle, surprised to find him waiting by the doorway, holding a small white flower. You came, she said softly. He smiled. You said if I ever wanted to learn about grace, I'd have to start in church. She chuckled. And how's the lesson going? He offered her the flower. Still learning. But I found my teacher. They stepped outside into the sunlight. Children ran around the churchyard, chasing bubbles while volunteers served snacks. Talani sat on the low stone wall watching them. Do you ever think, she asked, that maybe all this happened so we could understand what real love means? He nodded slowly. Real love forgives before it forgets. It heals before it holds. She smiled. You're getting poetic. Maybe peace makes poets of us all, he said quietly. Talani turned to him, eyes gentle. You've changed, Junha. He smiled faintly. No, Talani. You did. You taught me that power means nothing if it can't protect peace. That love means nothing if it can't stay gentle. She took his hand. No hesitation this time. Then promise me one thing. Anything. No more fighting. No more bleeding for me. He looked at her with calm certainty. No more wars, only worship. They laughed softly, the kind of laughter that belongs to people who have survived everything but still choose tenderness. That evening, as sunset melted into pink and gold, they stood together at the rooftop garden of the Era Foundation. The jasmine plant had grown, tiny blossoms swaying in the breeze. Talani whispered, We started with a lie. Junha smiled, and ended with grace. She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. Then maybe grace was the truth waiting all along. As the city lights shimmered below and the first stars appeared above, they stood hand in hand, not as a broken man and a fearful woman, but as two hearts reborn through mercy, laughter, and love that finally knew peace. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Here at Munlyt Stories, every tale is crafted with passion, care, and dedication. Our mission is simple: to entertain, inspire, and connect us all across cultures and hearts. So, keep the conversation alive in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Munlyt Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed. Stay inspired. See you in the next story.